Many centuries ago, kings would build castles with large moats around them. You know, the moats are the areas that have water in them, and they did this strategically in order to keep other kings from coming and attacking their castles. So they had multiple layers of protection. They had the big thick walls, and then they had the moat around them. Now, if we were to build a house today, even a big mansion, how many of us would be likely to build a moat and have a castle with such thick walls for the sake of our protection? Probably very few of us would say we'd do that. And this is because today, in this time, we're not expecting our neighbors to come with their battering rams trying to break down our houses, right? All we need to protect the exterior perimeter of our house is a fence. And in those times, many centuries ago, a fence wouldn't have been enough to protect them, given the kinds of enemies and adversities they faced. And this is really analogous to our boundaries in our own lives. Many times we hear that we should have fences, not walls, between us and other people. And this is true because it helps us connect to others. When we have a fence with a door, that means that we allow people to come in and out, and we're still able to keep unwanted people outside of our property if those people are respectful of our boundaries, of our fences. But if instead we're dealing with people who are like the kings and the kingdoms from many centuries ago, and instead come at you with battering rams, fences will not be enough for you. So we're kind of at a catch-22 here. Which one do we do? Should we have the big, strong castle walls with a moat, keeping people at bay, far away from us? Or should we have nice fences that allows us to connect to other people, that allows the good in, lets the bad out? Which one is it? Well, the real question is not just which one should I choose, but what kind of neighbors do I have? In other words, what kind of people do I have in my life? If you have people in your life who are kind and respectful, all you need is fences. You can set your boundaries, explain what you like and what you don't like, and that will be sufficient to keep you from being hurt. But if instead you're around people who are going to come with a battering ram, in other words, people who are abusive or who are narcissistic, a low empathy, don't care about your feelings, people who maybe have very small internal breaks, and when they're angry, they'll come and unleashing you in full fury, a fence may not be enough for you. And this is where seeing our own ability to make decisions in our lives in terms of who gets to be in our lives and who doesn't becomes so important. Because who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world isn't only dependent on you. It's dependent on how the people around you are going to receive you and accept you, and if they're going to respect how you want to show up. If you're around people who are very harsh with you, very critical and abusive, you have to have a moat if you want to be protected. And from the nervous system perspective, you have to be safe. Safety is number one. Safety comes before connection. Now, connection is important though. Our brains are wired for connection. But our brain knows it doesn't matter if we don't connect, if we don't survive. We have to survive first before we connect. So if we feel like we can't connect safely, our brains will automatically react in a certain way to cause us to be defensive and hold people at bay. That's just a natural defense mechanism. This is partly why people who are, for instance, avoidantly attached, they may have experienced something growing up that made them feel they couldn't trust people. So their attachment system and their brain and their physiology activated to keep relationships at bay. Okay, so, however, once we feel safe and we are actively moving into, to have good relationships where we can actually connect with people, our brain will receive that as well. But what I think is especially important is that there's a lot of people who read all the books, make themselves vulnerable, do all the right things by their partner, and they are trying really hard to do right, by their partners, but they don't ever take into account what their partner is doing to them, they can really put themselves up to be exploited and hurt because they're making themselves be very vulnerable. If you're somebody who wants to connect with your partner and you open up about your fears and your dreams and your goals, and your partner is safe for you, that's great. Now you connected. You are going to be better off for that. You're going to get more support. But if you do that same behavior in a relationship with somebody who is abusive or unkind or manipulative, that is going to be used against you in some way down the road. This is why going to marriage counseling, for instance, for people who are, or couples counseling, isn't recommended for people who are in abusive relationships, because you go to the counseling session, you say what you have to say, and now your partner has that information to use against you later on. It's recommended for couples where there's a true misunderstanding, but there's not abuse going on. And so this is the case. Whenever you're in a relationship, you cannot be vulnerable and just use a little measly fence for boundaries if the person that you're interacting with is not amenable to that. If they're not going to be respectful of that, it's not going to work for you. In that situation, you need a moat. Now, if you don't want to live your life with a moat, with strong walls, then what that means is that you must only have safe people close to you. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm going to be around whoever I want to be. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be whatever I want to be, because you're going to get hurt, because your safety is not only dependent on your fences, it's dependent on whether the other person is going to respect those fences. And similarly, you can't say, oh, I'm going to have these boundaries, these big, thick walls and a moat, but I still want good people who want to share their life with me. Those people are not going to be able to because they can't get through to you. So you have to make a choice. Are you going to choose to have fences, be vulnerable, and connect to others? Then you need safe people. Are you going to erect strong walls and have a moat around you? You're not going to get the connection that you need, but you will be safe, and you may be drawn to people who will actually try to use the battering ram because that's what they're used to. So these are choices that we have to make. But once we understand what our choices are, that gives us so much freedom for us to be able to make choices that are really good for us. We get to choose who we want in our lives. I know for me, my choice has been, because I like fences, I like having people close to me, I like being close to others, I prefer to have fences with safe people. And that is how I'm going to be protected.